Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about fear. I'm not so much a fan of the stereotypical idea about fear. I don't think it benefits us. In the spiritual and self-help communities, fear and ego are seen as bad. The mind killers. They're the ones that are out to get you. But the reality is, if it weren't for fear, we could never know who and what we really are. Think about it like this. We understand that the vibration which Source holds is the vibration of love, because love has been the most unanimous desire that has emanated from life itself, since the beginning of life itself. So if Source is the vibration of love, the vibration of what is not love is fear. Most people think the opposite of love is hate. It's not true. The opposite of love is fear. So for us to know love, and thus to know God, we must know what is the opposite of God. This is the principle of contrast. Without fear, we could not know love. Why are we here on this earth? We are here on this earth because we are extensions of Source energy. Source is often called God. As extensions of Source, Source is attempting through us to know itself. We can only know ourselves if we know what we aren't. We can only know truth if we know illusion. So if truth is love and truth is God, illusion is fear and illusion is the separation of the third dimension. That's why fear is such an integral part of the third dimension and the life you live here. Without it, you could never know what you truly are. Fear is illusion. Life is designed to strip illusion from you, and so life is designed to strip fear from you. It does this by bringing you face to face with your fears again and again, until you have no choice but to face them and release your resistance to them, until you have no choice but to become fearless. Once you have become fearless, you are free from illusion, and life no longer serves a purpose, because you have discovered truth. But then, you are dead. We spend our time running around the world trying to prevent ourselves from what we fear. We design our lives so that we don't have to feel it. But whatever we resist persists. It chases us into the corner. We have no choice but to stare it down, because we cannot run away from it. This is funny. It is understandable, though, that we try to prevent the very tool which keeps offering itself to us, the tool which keeps wanting us so badly to find out truth and to feel love. Fear is the tool of expansion. You could never know love without fear. You could never know truth without fear. You could never know oneness without fear. You could never know God or Source without fear. You would be oblivious to yourself without fear. Not only that, Source or God would be oblivious to itself without fear. Fear is the greatest tool of awareness that has ever existed. Fear is not your enemy. You should not be ashamed of it. Every being in existence feels fear. Because every being in existence is here for one thing, expansion. And as I said before, fear is the greatest tool for expansion. There's also another benefit to fear. Fear always has something important to tell us. In today's world, people who ignore fear, who suppress it, who minimize it, are glorified. But by doing this, we are glorifying the idea of us ignoring our personal lessons. Ignoring and glossing over fear is different than taking a look at fear and using it to base our decisions off of self-love instead of fear or instead of pure logic. In spiritual communities, we make a very grave mistake. What we do given the knowledge that fear is ultimately illusion, is we mistake the fact that fear is illusion to mean that fear is invalid. We have the tendency to ignore and minimize our fear and red flags that go off in our emotions, minds, and bodies, and a lot of us get into big trouble because of it. This is especially true when it comes to other people. To be quite frank, some people on this planet are caught in patterns where they do not have positive intentions towards other people. This doesn't mean you have to hate them. This doesn't mean you have to allow them into your experience either. When we meet these people, our bells and whistles go off. We have red flags. Our internal guidance system, our nervous system, alerts us to the fact that there is danger in the area. It alerts us by causing us to feel fear. But we, thinking that fear is invalid, tend to minimize these red flags and minimize the fear that we feel. Instead, we try to be unconditionally loving. Some of us in the spiritual community end up dead because of it. We do not look at what our emotional guidance system is trying to tell us because we don't think fear is valid. We don't examine the fear that we have. Instead, we try to focus on anything that decreases that level of fear. Deliberate focus can be detrimental in these circumstances because it can be a form of escapism. Sexual predators love spiritual women. They love spiritual women because our beliefs lower our boundaries. They increase our tolerance for other people's problems, including abusive behaviors. They love spiritual women because our own beliefs tie our hands. We cannot be good, compassionate people unless we unconditionally love even the people that hurt us and even the people who scare us. But believe me when I tell you that fear is a valid part of your emotional guidance system. It always has something important to say. It is always trying to alert us to something that it thinks is a threat to our well-being, and you had better listen if you want to live a life which is in alignment with your own well-being. This doesn't mean that you have to live your life at the mercy of fear. You don't have to let fear dictate your actions, because we don't have to act on emotion. But we do have to examine our emotion. We have to question our emotions, including fear. We have to understand everything we can understand about it. And we have to understand that sometimes our fear is giving us a very accurate measure of what is around us, including the people that we are surrounded with. Fear is designed to keep the ego existing, and without that basic system in place, we would not last in the physical dimension long enough to learn anything. No more expansion can be experienced if we're dead. Regardless of whether you're a spiritual person or not, your internal guidance system would alert you by causing you to feel fear if you were standing in the middle of the road and if a truck was barreling towards you. But most of us in the spiritual world who see fear as illusion and therefore invalid would say that the true spiritual thing to do would be to stand there, to transcend your fear and to bend reality, and thus not get hit by the truck. Rather than to jump out of the way of the truck, which most spiritual people would say is giving in to your fear and not realizing you create your reality. Could we stop there for a minute? Look at what you're expecting of yourself. Is that really what you want to tell yourself? That to be a spiritual person would be to ignore your fear to that degree? Is it really self-loving to expect this from yourself? Does your fear truly serve a purpose here, or is it out to get the better of you? I understand that spiritual teachings seem to be contradictory. One minute people are saying, be unconditionally loving. The next minute they're saying, make sure that you surround yourself only with people that have your well-being at heart. How do we know which is right? That's a frustrating thing, I understand. But spiritual teachings have to be oriented towards a multidimensional universe. That means that teachings are directed to wherever you are vibrationally at this moment. Most of us are not in a space where we have transcended fear to such a degree that we attract nothing to fear in our experience yet. So you are surrounded by things that are valid to fear. And maybe listening to your internal guidance system when it makes you feel fear is not such a bad thing. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you not spiritual. On a third-dimensional level, which is the dimension you're focused into in order to live this physical life, fear alerts you to something. Fear alerts you that there is a self-loving decision that needs to be made. Examine your fear. Make self-loving decisions as a result of examining your fear. Maybe if you fear speaking in public, upon examination you'll find that it is self-loving to go through with it, and indeed speak in public. Maybe you'll find that it is self-loving to not speak in public. You will learn based on any decision you make, so you can't make the wrong decision. Never, I repeat, never ignore, gloss over, or minimize your fear. It always has something incredibly valuable to tell you. Your fear is one of your greatest allies when it comes to expansion and when it comes to self-awareness. It is not non-spiritual to have fear. We cannot condemn fear without simultaneously condemning life itself. Have a good week.